Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So, how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 196. Now, when I rebooted the podcast, when it came back in November, when I was prepping for it in October, I was brainstorming different ideas that I might want to talk about, and today's topic was on there. Now, why did it take me 7 months to actually do this particular episode? Because I was scared. I think one, I was scared to admit that this is an issue that bothers me, that I'm dealing with. And two, I have so many friends and colleagues and clients who do the things that I think are potentially harmful or anti-feminist. And I don't know. I think that I felt a little bit of fear around, being judgmental and people feeling like I was pointing fingers at them or dissing them, when in reality, that's the last thing women need. Like, we already have so much to deal with that I don't think that we should be pointing fingers and creating more stress and anxiety and tension where there doesn't need to be any. But this issue keeps coming up for me, and I swear, like, I deal with it on a daily basis. And so finally I was just like, all right, I'm going to talk about it. But I've spent a lot of time trying to approach it from a way that we can all have a discussion around it without feeling shamed. That's my goal. We'll see what happens. So today is less of, like, I'm not getting on my high horse. I'm not preaching. We all know I can do that sometimes. And it's not really me sharing advice or strategy or even necessarily my thoughts, which I do a lot of times. It's really me sharing my process, my struggles, my concerns, my inability to make sense of this topic, this issue. And my hope is that you will actually join me in the conversation. Even if you are listening on Apple or Spotify or somewhere else, my hope is that you will come to YouTube and actually leave me a comment and let me know how you deal with this, how you process with this, and whether you are 100% against everything I'm about to talk about, or you are 100% for it. It's less about are you for it or against it, and more about how you process it and come to those conclusions. Like, that's what would actually help me. And so my guess is I'm not the only one dealing with this. So hopefully you can also learn and gain some clarity as well. All right. So what exactly am I talking about? Well, presumably if you've read the title or looked at the show notes at all, you already know what we're going to talk about. But if you just listen every week and you're like, what are we talking about, Heather? We are talking about appearance. We're talking about appearance. We are talking about aging. We are talking about, graying hair, Botox, fillers, plastic surgery, all the things. And the first thing is, it bothers me, it genuinely bothers me that I even care what I look like. Because I feel as though that is such a patriarchal concept and system. Because my friends who are men, my husband who are aging, they don't really seem to care what is happening to their body. And I suspect it is because they never received messages about aging or what their body looks like. Whereas for women, not only have we been taught about appearance since we were tiny, right? Like often the most common, compliment or statement you're going to receive as a little girl is, you look beautiful. Aren't you cute? Right? So we know that that's how we receive validation. And then we, have all of the magazines. I mean, in high school, I don't want to say obsessed, but I would read everything about how to look better, how to do this with my makeup. I remember one time there was, it said something about the symmetry of your face. Like it didn't tell you like how you could correct it, but it was talking about how like supermodels and most of these other people, they have symmetry to their face. And so they were saying what you could do is take a photo that's centered and then like, dash down the middle and then fold it in half and then you could see. Absurd, right? But I did it. And shocking, my face is not symmetrical. And my whole life since then, I have known this. And I used to obsess about like my nose and my mouth, right? Like it doesn't line up. And I can see that now. And I'm like, my gosh, I wish I had never seen that because like, why would they even say that? Like, because there's nothing you can do about it. Anyway. So if you're a woman, you totally get this. I don't think there are men's magazines that do this. Although, I don't know what the gay men's magazines are, but all of my friends who are gay, they're just as bad or even worse when it comes to their obsession with appearance. So they probably got this message too. So it's not just women, but for heterosexual men, I just don't think that their image, like that was never really talked about, neither when they were boys growing up, nor in like the magazines that they were reading. I don't even know what magazines did they read. I mean, like ours was all about fashion and how to get a man and how to look good, right? Like that was it. I don't know what guys read. I mean, I guess my husband, we grew up in a small town, a rural town. He was probably like reading Field and Stream or something like that. I don't know. But I doubt they ever talked about what you look like. So it bothers me. Like I know where this comes from. I know why appearance matters to me. And it pisses me off because I feel as though it is not a natural desire. It is 100% based upon my conditioning living in a misogynistic patriarchal society. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to support that. Like, I don't want to support that. And I try to actively be aware of where that conditioning comes in, and I try to fight against it. And it's funny, I was actually doing a keynote in New Orleans. It was like the last keynote I did before the world shut down. And I wore flats, which was like this big moment for me because a lot of what I used to do with Simple Courage, and I still do today, it's part of how a lot of people ask, like, how are you brave enough to do that? I am constantly looking at my conditioning, and then I just invite myself to get curious as to what would happen if I challenged it. So normally I would wear heels to everything. If I'm going to speak, I used to always wear heels to work. Every single day I wore heels all the time. They hurt my feet. I would get bunions. I was constantly having to do things to my feet. I mean, they hurt all the time, but that's what you do, right? And so in the moment I was like, gosh, I really wish I could wear flats. And I was like, well, I can't do that. And in that moment, for whatever reason, I was like, where did that thought come from? And is this conditioning? And I was like, oh yeah, it is. So it's like, all right, we're going to take the shoes, but I wasn't fully confident that I really wanted to follow through with it. So I packed the flats and I packed the heels. And so on the day of, I decided to wear the flats, and I ended up at the end actually talking about it in the keynote. And I even said, like, I shared like how I was going through this process, and they all started laughing because they had flats in their bags. They're at a conference walking around in their heels because that's what you're supposed to do. But they hurt. And if you're going to walk, a longer distance, like they had their flats to put on. And another woman told me at the very end, she was like, as soon as I saw you up there and I saw you wearing flats, I thought, wow, that is brave. I mean, y'all, what are we doing? So anyway, so now I think I've just been wearing flats since then. And of course, it's kind of easy because that was in February of 2020. And then we just went straight into COVID. So that's what I wear now. I wear flats all the time. I'm getting ready to have a photo shoot. And I have some dresses that are just fabulous and I love. And I'm playing dress up. And I'm like, oh, I need heels for this. And there's a part of me who's like, don't you dare put those heels on. Like, why do you want the heels? And I know why I want the heels. Because just from a fashion perspective, I think it's going to look better. And it's going to elongate my legs, right? Like they make your legs look better. And I'm just like, ugh, why do I care? Why do I care? Why do I care? So anyway, this really, really bothers me that I care about this. And then the other reason why I think I've been hesitant to bring it up is it's just such a self-absorbed conversation. I mean, there are people dying. We are losing our rights. There are so many problems in the world. And I want to talk about the bags under my eyes. I want to talk about how I'm struggling with my looks and aging. It seems insensitive. It seems really insensitive. And so I try to put it in perspective, and yet I still have these thoughts. I still have these feelings, and I look out at all, especially all of the influencers. And where I am in online business, I think maybe I see it even more, but I don't know. Maybe everyone notices this. But everyone has the exact same hairstyle. Everyone's got like super long hair. They've all got generally the fake lashes. They definitely are Botoxed. They're all like trying to be as skinny as possible. And I'm just right with the fashion and everything. And I'm just like, what are we doing? Because I feel like everybody kind of is starting to look the same, which is just weird. Like there's no individuality going on. And they look a bit like Barbies. And when I say that, I mean like they look a little bit plastic. Like it doesn't fully look real to me. And, we've all seen the people who are so obsessed with plastic surgery or fillers or Botox or whatever else that they stop looking real. And I suspect, I don't know, that it's almost like an addiction and this obsession. And I'm not talking about like the TV shows and like where it go, like the Bazaar. I'm talking about just on a daily basis, like just people in everyday life who, even if they're not going to those extremes, it still seems as though they're aiming for something that doesn't actually look real. And I don't know why that bothers me, but it does. I'm just like, what are we aiming for? Like, are we trying to create this like new human aesthetic? And maybe one day we'll have that technology, for us to all look like supermodels. But I just feel like sometimes, I don't know. And again, this is where it's like, I don't want to be judgy because like you might be the person who's got a lot of filler and Botox. Maybe you've had a lot of plastic surgery. Maybe you wear fake eyelashes. And so I'm not trying to judge you or diss you. I genuinely just wonder what's the end goal, and is the goal to look naturally beautiful or to look like something that doesn't look real? Like I'm just curious as to what we're doing and where we're going with all of this. And I think part of it is, I don't know, maybe it scares me a little bit. I think I've always struggled with belonging and not fitting in. And I think maybe part of it is I feel like everyone I know around me is doing all of this stuff except for me. And I feel a little bit like, I'm the only one who's not doing it. And it's like this concept of peer pressure. And I'm just like, but why are we doing it? Is this a good thing? Is this what we want to be doing? And most of the women and the men that I know who are obsessed with this and do it all the time, and it's just part of their routine, they are feminists, right? Like they believe in equality, they're against misogyny. And I'm also curious, just in their own minds, like how they justify it. And I've heard some people say, oh, well, I do it for me, not others. And I don't believe you. I'm just being honest. I don't believe you. And maybe, that's all me, right? Like maybe I'm projecting my shit onto you. But like when I think about myself, I always try to think of, if it's just me, do I care about it? Or do I only care about it if I'm out in public or like on a Zoom call or podcast? For example, I totally am rocking the Zoom mullet right now. I have sweatpants on, and all I have done is what you can see on the camera. And let me just tell you, when I used to do audio only, it was fabulous because, I looked a wreck and I didn't care. Now that we've got the YouTube version, I do try to do something from the waist up. Waist down? No, not at all. So I don't care, right? Like if I'm just walking around the house and if I have nothing going on and I'm not going anywhere, I could care less about makeup. There's going to be no makeup. And I could care less about what I'm wearing. Like, that's just how it is. So for me to say that I do makeup for me, in my own mind, that is a 100% complete lie, because I never put on makeup when it's just me. Never. And like clothes, same thing. Like, I just want to be comfortable. Like, I don't care what I look like. So for me, when I put on clothes, it is for appearances only. It's for going out only. Now, there are some clothes like I get really excited about because it's kind of creative, but that's not ever been my thing. For some people, I totally get it's a creative outlet. Because let me just tell you, my hair is a creative outlet. There's all of the talk about naturally going gray. I don't think I will ever naturally go gray, because I never started dyeing my hair in the first place because I was gray. Like, that's not why I dyed my hair. I started doing things with my hair the moment I was 18. My mom wouldn't let me do it beforehand. But as soon as I was my own adult person and, my own guardian with my own money, I immediately started getting, whether it was highlights or lowlights or, color, like all the things. And I've had a million different colors, right? I've played with it. This particular hair color is the longest I have ever had a color, except obviously my natural hair color up until I was 18. I love this though. I always wanted to go red when I was little. I used to beg to have my hair red. Like, there were certain women in town. I was like, I want my hair to look like hers. And of course, neither my mother nor the hairstylist would dye my hair red. And I don't understand why. But I finally gave myself, the red hair, and I absolutely love it. It feels a part of my identity. But who knows? I might switch it again. But I have good hair. I love my hair. I will still do my hair at home. So that is for me. I guarantee you that sometimes it's for other people, but in many ways, the hair is me. So I don't feel like I'm doing that for others, but it could be there. But I know a lot of women, they always had their natural hair color, and they're also grappling with, do I naturally go gray? Because, right, like that's generally not something that has been accepted in our society. Women are told it makes you look older and that, you need to dye your hair. And I feel like this is something that some of y'all are probably thinking about and dealing with. And like, how do you process that when you're like, I don't want to do something just because of conditioning, but also maybe you do like the way it like makes you look, right? And so it's just like, well, what do you do? What do you do with that? So I have never been one to actually care that much about, I think, my skin, because it's just been fine, right? Like I never had, I was not a kid that had acne growing up. I've got dry skin. So, I mean, there's that, but like, it's just not been that big of a deal. And, I was always so white, and I have like no melanin. I only burn. So it's not like I was out trying to suntan or like get, appearances like that way, just because it's not possible for me. I used to get made fun of a lot, but I couldn't really fix it. And so I think, it took me a long time, but I think over time I've just embraced that. Like, I have really white skin and it is what it is. But I was never like, my hair was always my thing. I enjoyed clothes. I wore crazy, wild, wacky clothes, tons of variety. And it wasn't necessarily what was in, it was what I liked and what I enjoyed. But my family, like my mother, my aunts, my grandmothers, just the town in general, but especially within my family, there was not an emphasis put on beauty and looks, which I am grateful for, because the fact that my conditioning came from outside the home, I can only imagine what it's like when your conditioning is also within the home. And I know in certain like Southern communities and cultures, like that's a really big thing. And, you can't ever be seen or walk out of the house without your lipstick on. And so I didn't really deal with that. But when I got to college and law school, and everyone had their nails done, and like they were doing all of these things, I was just like, what are you all doing? Right? Like, I'm like, I don't even know what you're doing. I don't even know the first time I got a manicure or pedicure was probably in law school, actually. And so like the concept that you would even paint like, that's just, it wasn't a thing for me. But then when I became a lawyer, and I already very much felt like I didn't belong, I did start doing things to try to just not stand out. I was just trying to do what others were doing. I really started doing the nails all the time, because I actually, a long time ago, I don't remember what episode that was. It was, we talked about habits. I actually pick at my nails. It's like an anxious thing. And so when I have a dip manicure, I don't, because I can rub it on it was a habit. It was a way I broke a habit. But now I actually have a ton of fun with it. And so as you can see, it's like glitter, and I really enjoy it now. But it's never been a big deal to me. And it's probably both, but I don't know if it's where I had the tumor and Cushing's disease, where I was having nonstop cortisol, I lost elasticity, and I've rebuilt a lot of things, but that's the one thing that it's not come back. And I don't feel like I'm making any progress whatsoever. My skin thinned and I lost a lot of elasticity, and I'm sure part of it is age, right? Like, I'm 44. So this is what starts to happen. But I have really struggled with this because, so we'll just go ahead and we'll do the breakdown of Heather's negative thoughts every time she looks in a mirror. So, I'm starting to get, and I like see like my mom, my grandma, like, right. Like, I'm seeing how I'm progressing into, and I'm like, no, because in my mind, I still feel 20. And what's interesting, I was talking to my grandfather who's 87, and he says he still feels in his mind he's 20. And I'm like, wow, I think I always knew I was going to age, but I think I thought my mind would age with my body. And my mind doesn't feel like it's aged. And so I feel like my body is betraying me. It's this very odd thing. And I know I'm just starting, right? Like, I know it's going to get worse. And I hate to even use the word worse. But it's messing with me, y'all. It is messing with my mind. And I know some of you listening are probably like, because I've got friends and people who listen who are in their 60s and 70s, and you're like, oh, child, just wait. But some of y'all are going through this with me. So I'm starting to get the jowls, like are along my jawline. The skin's not as tight as it used to be. The décolletage, the neck, like, I'm starting to notice those lines, and it's getting thinner. And then, this is like the worst part. I hate the bags under my eyes. Um, and then I have lines in my forehead. That doesn't really bother me that much. Sometimes um, the lines between my brows, they bother me a little bit. But I also have, so they're hooded eyes, but sometimes they're referred as droopy eyes. I've always known I had this. And I have some friends who have heard me talk about this for 15 years. They're like, shut up already. But it's hereditary. And so like my grandmother, so if you have droopy eyes, your eyelids are going to they're going to end up falling over into your eyes such that it blurs your vision. Like you can't see. And so my grandmother ended up having to have that surgery. There's others in my family. And like, I just know my eyes and I know, and they are getting worse. And it's going to get to the point where they start to fall in. When that happens, insurance covers it because you can't see. And so, but my whole thing has always been, why would I wait until insurance covers it? Right. And I'm really opposed to just like, I'm not into, what do they call that? It's not voluntary surgery. It's, y'all know the word. You're all screaming it at me, but I can't hear you. You can leave a comment. Let me know what it is. But I'm like, I just really don't know that I want to go under and get sliced and diced if I don't need it. As someone who has had several surgeries in the past few years, and, you know, I'm just like, do I really want to do that? At the same time, like all of this, I'm like, can something even be done about this? And I never even really had a skincare routine. Because again, my skin was fine, whatever. And now the amount of money I have spent the last few years on learning about and applying all of these different serums and whatever else. And like, is it making a difference? I don't know. Maybe a little bit. Not really that much. And yet I keep doing it. I keep spending the money. I'm like, well, maybe I need to buy something even more expensive. Because it's not working. I can't get this fixed. I spent $325 for a hydrofacial, which I've been wanting for a while. But they use a shellfish derivative in one of the process steps, and I'm deathly allergic. But they now don't do that, so I'm able to actually have it. And I finally got it done a few weeks ago. I could not tell any difference whatsoever. And I'm just like, imagine, I used to always laugh. Actually, I was being serious when I used to say, like, if I just want a stay-at-home husband, because a lot of the men in like the law firm had stay-at-home wives. And I'm just like, if all they had to do is work to get where they're going, I'm like, that's what I want. I just want to be able to work to get where I'm going. Imagine how successful I would be if I had someone to take care of everything for me. And it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, imagine what all I could accomplish like a man if I didn't spend the time, energy, and money on my appearance. And I don't even think it's making a difference. It's so frustrating. So, but for the first time in my life, I am considering like, if like I was going to have my eyelids done, would I go ahead and have other things done? Right? Like my chin and other things. Or is it just going to come back? And do I just need to be like, welcome to aging and it's okay? Like, I don't know. I've not done the fillers or the Botox or anything like that just because, one, I feel like that's one more expense, one more maintenance thing. And there's just a part of me that's like, do I want to put something like foreign in my body? And I always have kind of felt that way. Like, why am I putting something in my body like that? I also get that a lot of the food we put in our bodies is not good for you. So, and I color my hair, right? I'm sure that's toxic in some way. Having had the tumor with all of the cortisol and the hormones, I'm like, is this something I want to do? Like, do I really want to mess, with myself? And my friend was telling me about Botox and how there's this crunch. And I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah, like when you feel and hear this like crunch inside. And I'm like, I'm out. Like, no, I mean, I'm out. I'll pass out. I had acupuncture one time, and they had, I think it was like in my ear or something. And I'm sitting there, and it was like a room, there are other people in it. And I could just feel myself going down, and I'm like trying to get her attention, but I can't really move. And like another guy who's in there was like, I don't think she's okay. I basically fell on the floor. So I don't know. I don't know that I can actually do Botox and fillers. But I look in the mirror all the time when I'm at home by myself and I don't like what I see. And I realize I am going to age. But I feel like so many of my friends and peers and colleagues, like everybody's doing it. And so I do feel like, well, I'm kind of aging a little bit faster than them because they're doing all of these things to help their appearance. And I'm not. So for those of you who are doing all of this stuff, like, I would love to hear from you, like how you deal with that, how you process that or does like that not even come up for you, right? Like the concept of patriarchy and conditioning and feminism, like does that even come up? Or do you have thoughts around it that allow you to process it? Because I would be interested in hearing them. And for those of you who don't do it, right? Like you're like, I am not giving in to this peer pressure. I would also like to hear your thoughts around that. And whether you've like reached a place of surrender or acceptance where you're just like, this is what I look like. And like, you're okay with it, because I am not okay with it. That's the thing. And so I do know that part of this is conditioning. And I know that part of it would be for me, because just being able to look in the mirror at home by myself with no one else around, I would feel better. Like it's not going out in public. It's not going on camera. It's just looking in the mirror. So, oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous. The energy spent on having these thoughts. But I never really heard anyone talk about aging or having these thoughts as they aged. And I don't hear too much about it because all I hear about is all the hacks. In fact, it was the precipice for actually deciding it's time to record this podcast was because we'll call her an influencer. She's huge. She's really big in the online industry. She's got a new program, and she sent out an email that said something like, I did not wake up like this. And it was like, I go to all the best facialists, all the best, I know, like, this isn't natural and I can tell you how to achieve it. And part of her new program was like, we'll talk about my skincare routine. And I'm like, is this where we are? Like, on the one hand, like, I need the fucking skincare routine. And on the other hand, what? Like, this is where we are? Like, to be a successful woman, to be an entrepreneur, like, you need my skincare tips? I'm struggling. I'm struggling, y'all. Straight up. Being 100% honest, I am struggling with all of this, and I don't know what to do about it. So I welcome your feedback. I welcome your thoughts. I welcome your comments. Where that happens is YouTube, because you can't really do it on a podcast. That's audio only. So I'm being serious. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know, like, if you're having these thoughts, what do you have done and what's your thought process around it? And for those of you who are like not doing it, I'd love to hear your thought process as well. And it's not so much like, because I'm not looking at everybody to like start pointing fingers and judging and getting into arguments. I'm genuinely trying to just reach a place of peace on how we go about this, knowing there's no right or wrong answer. But I could really use some conversation around this. So, I am being a little selfish and just asking for your help today. So join me on YouTube and let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.